Hey everyone, you are just joining in a literary heaven, the legend of by Fairy and his fairy. Let's start our today's topic, but before going further, don't forget to subscribe the channel, like the videos, and share if you find it valuable. We were discussing the history of English literature, and we've just discussed literature in general, relation of literature to life, and the function of literature so far. My today's topic is literature and society. Let's start. Literature is intimately related to society. Viewed as a whole, a body of literature is part of the entire culture of people. The characteristic qualities that distinguish the literature of one group from that of another derive from the characteristic qualities of that group. Its themes and problems emerge from group activities and the group situations, and its significance lies in the context or the extent to which it expresses and enriches the totality of the culture. It is an integral part of the entire culture, tied by tissues of connections with every other element in the culture. Society influences literature in many ways, and the connections of literature with society are integral and pervasive. In fact, the range for social influences on literature is as broad as the entire range of operative social forces. The prevailing system of social organizations, including the class structure, the economic system, the political organization, and the deeply rooted institutions, the dominant ideas, the characteristic emotional tone, the sense of the past, and then patterns of the contemporary realities. There is nothing in the compass of social life that doesn't play its part, small or large, directly or by deflection or by giving literature the impress of its surroundings. So, the relation between literature and society is highly complex. It is very difficult to determine which elements of society has exerted what influence on literature. We cannot therefore afford to isolate a single element in society, whether economic or ideological, and assign to it a casual role in the final determination of literature. The whole of the social process, including material, conceptual, emotional, or institutional elements, may be regarded as containing the potential influences determining the direction and the character of literature of a period. In each period in the history of a nation, a certain social situation is brought into the area of the operative influence, which is different from any other social situation. The writer of that period selects those elements of that social situation which have managed to produce an impact on him and weaves them into a pattern which is compatible with his own standards of art and his views of human life. A very fine example of the effect of social conditions on the literature of the period is provided by the literature of Shakespearean time. The thing that strikes every reader today is the difference between the vivid Elizabethan drama, which in its best example stands still as noble as its first day. So, speaking directly to us and appearing imperishable on account of its psychological vitality and representation of life, and the poetic literature or the narrative literature of the same period, which, in spite of the poetic talent it reveals, seem to us centuries older because it lives in a world of ideas that no longer has anything in common with our own. And the main reason for this is that the determining sociological factors differ in two cases. Pure literature was dominant at the time by the social group of the aristocracy. Anyone who wished to get his work printed had to seek the patronage of a great lord. Anyone who wished to secure any return from the printing secured it is only in the form of the gracious present made in return for the enthusiastic and fulsome dedications. So the poets of that epoch largely obtained their sustenance in their pattern castles, where they didn't occupy a place for honor and were considered among the servants. The Spenser, the great poet of the age, says of the greatest work, The Fairy Queen, that its aim is to fashion a gentleman or a noble person in virtuous and gentle discipline. The didactic tendency aimed at by him has only an aristocratic world in view. And quite different was the position of the theatre in that period. The Elizabethan playwright was no longer dependent on the benevolence of the single pattern. It is true that the various companies of the actor described themselves as in the services of the great aristocrats, but this was no more than a formality rendered necessary by the certain provisions of law. The influence on literature of the social power of the aristocratic group, restricted to some extent only in theatre, continued plainly in English literature down to the 18th century. Only then did a real reading public developing on a wider scale. In place of pattern came the publisher, who for a long time used to fleece the writer. It was only in the 19th century that the writer could liberate himself from the oppressive or the humiliating dependence on the great or the win for him the dignity of independence. Thus, we see that the sociological conditions exert a great influence on the writer, but the writer is not only influenced by the society, he influences it also. Literature not merely reproduces life but also shapes it. People may model their lives upon the pattern of fictional heroes and heroines they have made love, committed crime, suicide, according to the great books like Goethe's Sorrows of Werther and Dumas and the Three Musketeers. Addison, by means of his satirical writings, changed to some extent the manners of his society. And Dickens' novel incited reforms of debaters, prisons, boys' schools, and poorhouses. So literature is a social activity. Every civilized society has its literature. Greek society and Roman society left their distinctive imprint upon their literature. Their pattern of literary development was interwoven with the fabric of their societies. It was born with them, reached its greatest height with them, and faded out with them on their collapse. When we study the modern writers, we find that it is correct that they are expressing their own individual awareness to life through their work, and that naturally they are applying their special technique to those things that seem vital to them. All this is the case, but it is also true that they are producing a social document. They are not only bringing to light the ideas, feelings, emotions, judgments of human beings, but they describe and including themselves, but they are also exhibiting for future readers what writers regarded as of a vital importance in their own day. That was all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay connected for more literary videos. Me, Fairy, signing out from the Literary Nook by Fairy.